Hey everyone, Nick Espinosa, your chief security fanatic here, and today's video/podcast comes from just a super interesting article here. And the question I'm asking today is, what happens if a national election is called into doubt? Facebook may actually have an answer for this, or at least they're working on it. Now, here's what's going on. And before I begin diving into the nuts and bolts of this, I want to say, as I've said multiple times before, I am not really diving into politics here. I consider my job in cybersecurity agnostic to politics. Everybody needs it. So I don't care if you love or hate the current politics, in the country, whoever you vote for or whatever, that's your business. These are the facts on the ground. And I found this absolutely interesting. Now, this article is about the 2020 election, but I think, though, that the issues that this article brings up are basically valid for any country in any election that is holding this, or holding any kind of election here. And so with that, here's what's going on. Employees at Facebook are laying out contingency plans and walking through post-election scenarios that include attempts by the president, in this case President Trump here in the United States, or his campaign to use their platform to try and delegitimize the results. This is according to people with knowledge of Facebook's plan talking to reporters. Now, if you recall, in 2016, then candidate Trump had actually called the election rigged prior to winning it, basically saying that, well, it's going to be rigged in favor of Hillary Clinton. Obviously, that ended up not being the case because he won the election. But in recent weeks, the president, who basically uses social media as his megaphone and his platform, has basically really started hammering this home in the sense that he has on Twitter, for example, questioned the legitimacy of things like mail-in voting, suggested that people's mail-in ballots could not be counted, or maybe that they just wouldn't be delivered in all of this. And he's also avoided questions, including his press secretary. If basically, let's say he loses the election, will he accept those? And both himself and his press secretary said, well, we'll see what happens during the election. We are not going to actually commit to anything on that right now. That is verbatim almost what his press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, said, obviously, as well as the president on social media, and you can all go read that. Again, I am not adjudicating whether that is right or wrong. I'm simply saying these are the facts on the ground. And more facts on the ground right now is that Facebook is working through this, basically, if the president tries to invalidate the results by declaring that, let's say, the Postal Service lost the mail-in ballots, or other groups meddled with the potential vote. Now, Mark Zuckerberg, obviously founder of Facebook, and some of his top lieutenants have started holding daily meetings about minimizing how the platform can be used to possibly dispute the election. Now, they have discussed a quote-unquote kill switch to shut off political advertising after Election Day, since the ads, which Facebook infinitely does not police for truthfulness, and that actually got them into trouble when he was in front of Congress, talking to then, Representative Ocasio-Cortez, who basically said that, or asked if she could put out an advertisement on somebody that was very much a President Trump supporter. She is not, just basically saying lies. And Mark Zuckerberg said, well, yeah, basically, we're not going to police that. You can. So that is from Mark Zuckerberg's own mouth in front of Congress. And so obviously the concern then is that these could be used to spread misinformation if the election is attempted to be delegitimized. So just in speaking with Alex Stamos, who is the director of Stanford University's Internet Observatory, the reporters, basically, he's also a former Facebook executive, but the reporters on this story said, talked to him, and Stamos said that Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube have basically faced a singular situation where they, and I quote, have to potentially treat the president as a bad actor, end quote, because obviously that might be undermining the democratic process. But here's the kicker to the whole thing before we start diving into my thoughts on this. Facebook may be an especially difficult position because Zuckerberg has said the social media stands for free speech. I recently did a video, something like 4 or 5 days ago, I think, about Holocaust denial pages basically being recommended and not being banned from their platform in any way, shape, or form, in the same way that Zuckerberg and Facebook have created a hate speech list, if you will, or a hate speech response to start quashing a lot of the quote-unquote hate speech that is going on, Holocaust denial was outside of that scope. That was a video from a few days ago. And so I think it underscores the point that Mark Zuckerberg, who is Jewish, as I mentioned in that video, obviously is standing for free speech here if he's allowing Holocaust denial or, a situation like this, which we will get into. Unlike Twitter, though, basically Facebook is not doing anything in terms of flagging the president for fact-checking in the way that Twitter has. Twitter has been flagging the president's tweets for factually inaccurate information or glorifying violence was another one that happened. But Facebook has said that politicians' posts are newsworthy, and therefore the public has a right to see them regardless of the content. So taking any action then on posts from the president or his campaign after the election could open up Facebook to accusations of censorship and anti-conservative bias. And so obviously that's a huge line that Facebook, Twitter, and all of them have to walk. But I think there's a couple of things going on here that we needed to really deal with. And part of that, I think, is good information delivery. If we have accurate facts, understanding, statistics, and research, let's say, on things like mail-in voting, then I think those are the kinds of things that need to be available. I don't necessarily know how you would be able to censor a president, but the other question then we have to ask is, if, let's say, the president of the United States, or this could be the president of any country that finds him or herself in this position, if they say the election is invalid because of some kind of malfeasance, whatever that malfeasance is, should we actually be banning that from a platform without, let's say, it being demonstrably false? Or how do we prove that something is demonstrably false? So, for example, and I'm just using this as a hypothetical here, not saying it's true or anything, but let's say the president says this election is invalid because 10 million mail-in ballots did not get to where they needed to go. If that is found to be truthful, for example, let's say research and evidence independent of, let's say, any political campaign finds that did happen, then what? And if that is, let's say, the case, and again, this is a hypothetical, I'm not saying this happens, if, let's say, the president is saying that, and then Facebook and Twitter and all the other platforms get together and don't allow that message to be had or to be said or anything else, then are we potentially allowing a fraudulent election to go through when somebody is rightfully saying it is illegitimate? Now, conversely, we have the other side of that argument, right? Which is if all available evidence says mail-in voting is safe, tons of states have used it. The fraud rate, for example, in the state of Oregon, which is one statistic I read, is 0.000001% over something like the last 20 years of mail-in voter fraud issues. And the state of Oregon, from what I understand, basically does mail-in voting by default, as do a lot of states now. And so that's a huge thing, not to mention the conflagration between mail-in voting and absentee voting and all of this. It's going to be, I think, a very contentious election. I think we are going to see accusations probably coming from both sides of the aisle on this in various ways and for various various reasons, rather. So again, I'm not sitting here adjudicating that. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, left or right, independent, don't care about it all, burn it all down, whatever you believe is fine by me. But these are the facts on the ground. Facebook is building a contingency plan on the assumption that the president of the United States is going to attempt to delegitimize the election that is going on. And then how do we as a society and as basically the largest purveyor of news and information by far, in this case Facebook, how are they going to handle something that could be proven demonstrably false? Or if it's proven true, then what? This is a huge problem. I don't think there's an easy answer to it, but I'd love to have the discussion, providing we can be civil with each other. Again, don't care what side you're on. Let's just all be cool with each other, especially if you're sitting in my comment section. I would really appreciate it. I get called an idiot quite a bit, and I hopefully am not going to be called worse on this one, but it's a very interesting thing we need to talk about, and so that is your news for the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at Nick AESP, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online and be nice to each other. Thanks, guys.